What does it take to reclaim a life shattered by shame? In the heart of Ashwood City, where the skyline gleamed with ambition, Jack Harlan was a name once synonymous with heroism. A decorated firefighter, he'd run into infernos without hesitation, saving lives with a courage that seemed unbreakable. But 3 years ago, a single mistake changed everything. A misjudged call during a warehouse blaze left 2 of his crew injured, and the city turned on him. Branded a failure, Jack was stripped of his badge, his pride, and his purpose. Now, he wandered the streets, a shadow of his former self, drowning in guilt and cheap whiskey. The night was cold, the kind that bit into your bones. Jack sat on a park bench, staring at the stars, when the first wail of sirens pierced the air. His instincts, dulled but never dead, flared to life. Smoke curled over the horizon, thick and menacing, rising from the direction of St. Mary's Orphanage. The place was a beacon of hope for Ashwood's forgotten children, a crumbling old building filled with laughter despite its peeling paint. Jack's heart lurched. He knew that place knew the kids who called it home. He'd visited once, years ago, reading stories to wide-eyed faces. Now it was burning. He ran, his worn boots pounding the pavement, each step shaking off the haze of despair. The streets blurred past, and as he neared the orphanage, the scene was chaos. Flames roared through the upper floors, licking at the night sky. Fire trucks lined the block, but the crew was short-handed, overwhelmed by the blaze's ferocity. Onlookers screamed, their faces pale with horror. A young girl's cry cut through the noise, trapped somewhere inside. Jack's blood ran cold. He didn't think, acted. The lead firefighter, Captain Ruiz, spotted him. "Harlan, get out of here. You're not one of us anymore." But Jack's eyes were fixed on the building, on the flames dancing like demons. He grabbed a discarded oxygen mask and an axe from a nearby truck. Ruiz shouted again, but Jack was already moving, plunging into the inferno. Inside, the heat was suffocating, a living thing that pressed against his skin. Smoke choked his lungs, but Jack pushed forward, guided by the faint sound of cries. The orphanage's wooden beams groaned, threatening collapse. He navigated the maze of hallways, memories of his old life flashing, nights spent training, lives he'd saved, the trust he'd lost. A voice in his head screamed to turn back, that he was no hero. But another voice, quieter but stronger, whispered, "Not tonight." He found them on the 3rd floor, 5 children, huddled in a corner, coughing and terrified. The fire had cut off their escape, a wall of flames blocking the stairs. Jack's heart pounded, but his training kicked in. He wrapped the smallest child, a girl no older than 6, in his jacket, shielding her from the heat. "Stay close," he told the others, his voice steady despite the chaos. He hacked through a weakened wall with the axe, creating a path to a side window. The flames were closing in, the air growing thinner. Outside, the crowd watched in stunned silence as Jack emerged, carrying the youngest child while guiding the others. Soot blackened his face, his clothes singed, but his eyes burned with a fire fiercer than the one he'd faced. He went back and twice more, each time pulling another child from the brink. By the time the last one was safe, the building groaned its final warning and collapsed, sending a plume of ash into the sky. The city watched, breathless. Paramedics rushed to the children, who clung to Jack, their savior. Captain Ruiz approached, his face a mix of awe and shame. "Harlan, I was wrong about you." Jack only nodded, too exhausted to speak. The crowd erupted in cheers, but Jack didn't hear them. He saw the children's faces, their fear replaced by hope. He saw the stars above, brighter now through the dissipating smoke. News spread like wildfire. The disgraced firefighter had become a hero again. Strangers wept in the streets, their hearts stirred by a man who'd risen from his own ashes. Jack didn't seek their praise. He'd found something greater, redemption. In saving those children, he'd saved himself, proving that even the broken can mend, that courage can burn brighter than any flame. Ashwood would never forget that night, the night a fallen man stood tall, leaving an entire city in tears of awe.